Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and today we were talking about O3DE, because O3DE 22.10 was just released. They didn't just jump forward a huge number of releases. That's a chronological release, so the 22 is 2022, the 10 is October. So this is an October 22 release because they have their developer conference going on right now. What you see in front of you, this is O3DE. By the way, these assets, I imported a few models just to see how they look in the world. This came from the Unity Humble Bundle I was just talking about yesterday, which I said you could easily use the asset in other engines. Well, here is an example. So just wanted to bring in a couple of FBX files, see how they perform, see how working in the editor was, and see what the overall O3D experience was. Because this is a game engine I have been rooting for a very long time, and it has been kicking me in the balls for a very long time. Now, earlier on, this was actually called Lumberyard. Before that, it was CryEngine 3.3, I think it was. Amazon gave them a whack of cash to have a source license of CryEngine. They released it as Lumberyard. Lumberyard never really seemed to take off, and then they ultimately open sourced it as O3DE. A lot of people backing O3DE, including, interestingly enough, Epic Games now, and I think Autodesk is in there. A ton of corporations are supporting this guy's development, and they did a release earlier that they did way too soon. So they tried to do a game jam in an early release when it was basically pre-alpha software, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. Well, since then, have they improved it overall? Well, I'm going to probably do a follow-up video later on, kind of showcasing what it's like to work with. I'm going to use it for a couple more weeks and give you an opinion of what I think of O3D in its current state. So we're mostly just going to talk about this particular release, but I have a couple things to say right now. First off, this is the project manager, and the process of creating a new project, it just worked. That is definitely nice. They put a lot of focus on the onboarding experience and making things work better, and you can feel it. So creating a new project isn't nearly as painful as it used to be. Back to the very beginning, when it was CryEngine, when it was Lumberyard, and then when the beginning of O3DE, in every single case, installing it and creating a new project was always a nightmare. Like, I'm talking 8 to 10 hours to get a new project up and going, if you could do it at all. Now, it was literally download it, double-click it, let it install the stuff it needed, and then create a new project, build the project, and you are good to go. So here we go. I created a new project, and things just work. So here we are in the new editor. They also made a number of improvements to the usability of the editor itself. I do appreciate that as well. We've got some things I'm not going to showcase here, but they added things such as a new train engine that can support 16 square kilometer trains and improve performance. The general usability of the engine itself is better, and I gotta agree, I find it very intuitive and nice to work with. There are still certain things like the asset importing process that it can be a little bit more painful than you would probably like, or maybe it's just not as intuitive as I was expecting it to be, but on the whole, pretty nice stuff there as well. This is an entity-based system, so for example, I'm going to come up here, I can create a new entity, like this guy right over here, and one of the new things that they added was a new sky control, for example. So sky, right over here, we'll do a sky atmosphere, and you saw immediately it kicked into effect in the background right there. You got all these controls over it and so on, but all of the stuff in this guy is an entity. Another big thing that they worked on for the last long time is there's a brand new renderer in the background, so that you'll see little remnants of it here. So if I come back here, for example, you'll see Atom default environment. Atom is the brand new renderer. The nice thing is they got rid of a lot of the duplicates that were down here as they are migrating to their new renderer. I also think they may have finally gotten rid of the Fmod requirements, which is huge, because they used to require a third-party audio system, which was always very annoying, hard to get things up and going. I'm not 100% certain that that has been fixed. I will look into that in the future. But, yeah, generally my experience working with the engine itself, no crashes, decent performance. I got 3D models in. Like you see, these ones, again, from that Humble Bundle, they look exactly like they're supposed to look, which is always a good thing. There were some things I would change about the workflow, but I'll show you that in the more in-depth video in the future. So, O3DE, definitely a usability-focused update, and that is what needed to happen. So the reason why this release happened is right now they've got O3D Con going on. Started yesterday. I believe it ends tomorrow. I'm not 100% certain what day it is, but I think today's the 18th. So it runs for a couple of days. There are some talks going on with that. Hopefully they get released to the general public going forward. But the big new thing here that we've got is this new release. And again, this release focused on all of the very important things, namely onboarding, usability. And those are things that O3D desperately needed to do. These are the things they should have done before they even attempted to do a game jam with the pre-alpha version a couple of releases back. So you're getting much more solid base to build upon, which I like. So what are the highlights here of 2020? 22.10 release. Again, onboarding and collaboration, remote projects, templates, network asset cache have made it easier to onboard and collaborate with other team members. So again, you've got remote, you can work obviously with people that are remotely distributed, which I guess is probably a more important feature in the post-COVID age. Multiplayer improvements to client-server connections, debugging, network spawning, setting up multiplayer is more straightforward than it used to be. Artist workflow, so improvements there, including animation import, root motion extraction, motion matching, experimental. This is a full-blown feature in itself. Looks pretty interesting. Then we've got usability improvements to various features, including viewport interaction, so entity selection, prefab editing mode, and so on. Gem creation wizard. Gems are very important to the concept of O3DE. You're going to head on over here, and you'll notice in the project manager, there are gems here. Gems can all be added to your project. They're kind of think of them as like plugins or extensions, and they are very core. This is a very modular engine. So if you want to add Twitch support, you can add it in. Via gem support, you want to add vegetation into your thing, add the gem in. Same thing as if you want NVIDIA support, so NVIDIA cloth is in here somewhere. So let me just do a quick search. So there, if you want to add NVIDIA cloth, you can add it in via a gem. So gems are pretty important on the whole, simply because they're the extensibility system of O3DE, and a lot of the core components of O3DE itself are actually implemented as gems. So gems are very important to a modular engine. So the process of creating them has gotten easier. Asset browser has been improved, and there is hot reloading of assets. As I mentioned earlier on very briefly, the new terrain system is in preview, but you can now create larger scale worlds, 16 square kilometer worlds, high frame rates, better runtime and editing performance, and so on. So those are the highlight new features, and of course we've got the new components of the sky and the star components. So they focused on all of the right things, in my humble opinion. They've focused on the usability and the getting started aspects, and for the most part, again, this is an engine where normally when I try it out, I have to, I gain at least 30 or 40 gray hairs. This time, no pain. I literally just installed it, up and off I went. And on top of that, there are a ton of features and bug fixes here as well. This is nice. Visual Studio 2022 is now being used if you have it installed. A ton of just generalized improvements across the board to the core, to the audio system, networking, the physics simulations, the testing stuff, and then we got some known issues as well in here. So that is the extent of the release. I will have links to all of the relevant documents in the linked article down below. So they focused on everything I think they needed to focus on, the right stuff. So I'm happy to see that, and it paid off. From what I experienced in working with it, it has been a solid experience so far. But again, I'm going to give it a little bit more time, get you a little bit more hands-on with it. Maybe I'll kind of do it as a review / getting started tutorial combo somewhere in the future. If there's certain things you'd like to see me cover in that, do let me know. Another thing that you may be interested in is their feature grid snapshot. This kind of gives you a bit of an insight of where they're going, what kind of stuff they're looking to work on, and the current state of it in the document itself. So there's a lot of things in the works. If you're interested, check out the feature matrix for where they're at with those things and so on. So again, there are a lot of planned operations going on. Also, I should have mentioned this, I guess, earlier on. This is an open source project. It is under the, I think it was MIT license. Apache 2.0 license. It is under the Linux Foundation that are actually administrating it. Primarily a C++ based project. It is a huge code base. Again, it started life as CryEngine way back in the day, then has gone through a couple of hands, and you can almost think of this as a huge rewrite. Now, if I said fmod earlier, I was wrong. It was wwise for the audio engine, by the way. So I'm not sure if I mentioned that in this take of the video or not, but this is an open source project. You can download binaries for both Windows and Linux. Sadly, macOS, you're out of luck on this particular version, and I don't know if there's any plans for macOS in the future, to be honest. In terms of O3DE itself, you can go to the download links, learn more about it, o3de.org. As I mentioned earlier on, there are a ton of companies partnering behind them, so you get an idea of some of the people that are backing this. Kitbash, who made a 3D kit available free. I just did a video about that the other day. Red Hat are behind this one. Side Effects Software, the makers of Houdini, are behind this guy. Adobe, Intel, AWS, Epic Games, Hawaii, everyone, I always say it wrong, so I'm not even going to try. Microsoft and Niantic. So there are a ton of people putting their resources behind the O3DE project, and this is really, I think, aiming to be an open source alternative to a Unity or Unreal Engine at that AAA scale. You can argue that the most successful open source game engine is definitely the Godot engine, but at that AAA level, there's really there's nothing in that segment. You've got a couple of close to that level, but this is it could be uniquely positioned, especially because of the big name players that are behind it. Again, when you've got Adobe, Intel, Microsoft, Epic Games, AWS, and so on all supporting this guy, there is a pretty good chance of success going forward. Now, the key thing here is they had to get the basics right. And until now, they had never gotten the basics right. It was a pain in the butt to install, and the editor didn't work that great. The whole migration to their new renderer was a little bit clunky and kind of duplicated everything. The usability wasn't that great. Those things all seem to be much improved in this release. So if you check this guy out in the past and it caused you to rage quit, it may definitely be worth checking out again, or stay tuned. I'm going to do a hands-on video in the next couple of weeks, and if there's something specific you want to see me cover in those videos, let me know and I will do my best. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is O3DE 22.10, available for download Windows and Linux right now. Let me know what you think. Comments down below. Talk to you all later. Goodbye.